Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Dare County Board of Commissioners meeting, February 1, 2021, 9 a.m. At this time, I'd like to offer an invocation from the Reverend Keith Dye, Emmanuel Lutheran Church, Southern Shores. God of love, we ask you to watch over this Board of Commissioners and the people of our community as we work for good of all who live, work, and find their enjoyment here. Bless the work of our leaders, our county employees, and the departments and agencies who assist our residents and guests. Guide us during this meeting so that our words and our actions reflect our love for Dare County and for one another. We are especially mindful of those who have suffered during this pandemic. Bring healing to the sick and comfort to those who grieve. We ask you to restore your creation through the wisdom of medical personnel, the leadership of public officials, the attention of caregivers, and the perseverance of frontline workers. We pray for successful distribution and administration of vaccines, and we ask for protection and healing among our people. We eagerly await healing across the land and the restoration of wholeness to your creation. All these things together with the deepest yearnings of our hearts, we bring to you in humility, in gratitude, and in praise. As you have blessed us, let us be a blessing to others. Amen. Amen. May we stand for the pledge. Chairman. Okay, we're going to try this for the third time this morning. We apologize to the public. We've had some technical difficulties. Welcome to the Monday, February the 1st, 2021 Board of Commissioners meeting. At this time, I'd like to offer an invocation from the Reverend Keith Dye, Emmanuel Lutheran Church, Southern Shores. God of love, we ask you to watch over this Board of Commissioners and the people of our community as we work for the good of all who live, work, and find their enjoyment here. Bless the work of our leaders, our county employees, and the departments and agencies who assist our residents and guests. Guide us during this meeting so that our words and our actions reflect our love for Dare County and for one another. We are especially mindful of those who have suffered during this pandemic. Bring healing to the sick and comfort to those who grieve. We ask you to restore your creation through the wisdom of medical personnel, the leadership of public officials, and attention of caregivers, and the perseverance of frontline workers. We pray for successful distribution and administration of vaccines, and we ask for protection and healing amongst our people. We eagerly await healing across the land and the restoration of wholeness to your creation. All these things, together with the deepest yearning of our hearts, we bring to you in humility, in gratitude, and in praise. As you have blessed us, let us be blessed to others. Amen. May we stand for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. County Manager.
Yes, sir. Matt, are we good?
Speak again.
Are we good to go?
You're good. Bob, can you talk?
County manager?
Okay.
Chairman, that brings us to item. I apologize for the issues with the technical. It all worked and then it didn't, so they're working on it. Item 1 on the agenda is the opening remarks from the chairman, and I'll turn it back over to you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, County Manager. Just have a few items this morning to go over. I'd like to announce that early midweek last week, we were fortunate enough to, the county manager, the vice chairman, and myself had the opportunity to meet with Representative Haney, Secretary, our House Representative Steinberg, our Senator, DOT representatives, to talk about the replacement of the Alligator River Bridge. We did this virtually, and there were representatives from Tillis and Burr's office there. And this meeting was really spearheaded and instigated from a letter that the vice chair wrote with respect to the replacement. It's critical as it is for our counties, Terrell and Dare and Hyde. So we had a very good meeting. We'll continue to meet and try to find ways to bring this to the legislature's attention as well as the feds in hopes of replacing that bridge sooner rather than later. The second item I have is I want to thank the public for those who tuned into virtually to the state of the county last Wednesday. We had in excess of 150 folks who participated in that virtually, and we've had in excess of over 500 folks that's watched it afterwards. So thank you all for tuning in, and I hope it was very informative for the public to see the progress and successes that we've had, not only in 2020, but moving into 2021. The last item is I continue to ask you to really soul search yourself and work really hard to participate in practicing the 3 W's. We are over 2,500 cases now in Dare County reported. We've vaccinated as of last Wednesday about 4,600 folks, and Wednesday we did over 1,000 folks. So we're in excess of, we're pushing 6,000 folks that's been vaccinated. Be patient with us. We're trying to get more doses here, but I can't thank Dr. Davies and her staff for all of her hard work that they have done since March and through administering these vaccines. Our heart goes out to those 7, the family members of those 7 that we've lost, but we certainly owe a great deal of gratitude to all of our health workers, EMS, our fire, our police, everyone. We also owe a great deal of thanks to Ronnie Sloan, who is president of Outer Banks Hospital, who's helped and provided dosages of vaccines for us to use as well. So please adhere to the 3 W's, if you will, so that we can continue to move in a positive direction dealing with COVID-19. So with that, County Manager, that completes Chairman's comments.
Chairman, that's just item 2 on the agenda. Item 2 is public comments. We'll take a minute or 2 to see if you get any public comments out there.
Everyone good? Thank you, County Manager.
Mr. Chairman, that moves to item 3 on the agenda. That's the presentation of the county service bids. Now is the time that we recognize our employees for their years of service, given the recognition they deserve for all the good work they've done for the county, for the community. Please.
Today we only have one service pin recipient. That's Shanna Fulmer, our Public Works Director, and she's receiving her 25-year pin. Shanna is a 1992 graduate of Virginia Tech, where she received a degree in English. I'm sure that when she received her diploma, she never dreamed that she would one day be the head of a public works department and be responsible for the collection of over 27,000 tons of trash yearly, or responsible for the maintenance of over 175 buildings and a number that's growing, or the grounds that those buildings sit on, or responsible for over 100 employees, or for the acres and acres of landfill, or the tons of recycling material that is collected across the county, or responsible for a transfer station where all trash collected by the county and the towns goes to be transported to the Bertie landfill, or responsible to and be a vital part of our emergency management team when we activate for storms or other emergencies. Quite the job description. We're extremely lucky in 1996 that Shanna chose to come to Dare County and work for our Public Works Department. She has spent all of her career with Dare County in public works. All organizations, big or small, have a behind-the-scenes person, that glue person, the person who keeps things together, organized and running smoothly. For the first 23 years, Shanna was that person. She's been involved in all aspects of public works, its budgets, its operations, its people, and was often the face or the voice of the Public Works Department to the public. When in doubt, ask Shanna. When our Public Works Director retired in 2018 after a long career, we began our search for a new Public Works Director. During that search, all roads led to Shanna. I'm so happy, and the county is so fortunate that they did. She jumped in on the first day with both feet and began operating the department like a veteran, because she was. Her operations have improved every year. The department is well run and well managed, and I could not be happier or prouder of the work that she has done, and I look forward to many more years to come. Thank you, Shanna, for your 25 years, for all that you do, for all that you have done, and for all that you will continue to do to make Dare County better. With that, Mr. Chairman, we move on to item 4 on the agenda. This is the Clark Cluster Home Group Development, and I think Noah's here to make that presentation. You can, either way, just
I think we got it.
give it back to me.
Good morning, Noah. Good morning, Noah.
Christopher and Kathy Clark have submitted a conditional use permit application for a cluster home development on their property located in Frisco, North Carolina. This property is identified as parcel 002731000 in the Dare County tax records and is located at 5063 NC 12 Highway in Frisco. The property is zoned S1 and cluster homes are permitted as a conditional use. Section 2231.1 of the Dare County Ordinance establishes a maximum size limitation of 1,200 square feet of heated space for any structure constructed in a cluster home development. The applicant is proposing to construct 4 900 square foot 2-bedroom dwellings meeting the requirements of the ordinance. The proposed site plan shows the dwellings being separated by 28 feet, exceeding the 15-foot minimum requirement, and each dwelling having 2 gravel parking spaces. The proposed cluster home development will be accessed from an existing 20-foot asphalt road. The Dare County Fire Marshal has reviewed the site plan and has indicated that the existing asphalt road will be sufficient to allow emergency and service vehicle access to the 4 proposed dwellings. Notes addressing emergency vehicle access have been added to the site plan. Section 2231 states that any structure or cluster home development shall be occupied on a long-term basis as defined in the zoning ordinance. Long-term is defined as a period of longer than 31 days. The information should be noted on the site plan and in any homeowner's documents created for the property. A copy of the as-built site plan will need to be recorded in the Register of Deeds once the infrastructure improvements have been completed. If it is the intention of the applicant to sell individual footprints of the structures, homeowners' documents will be needed. Only the footprint of the structure can be conveyed to individual owners, with the remainder of the site designated as common area. The Dare County Planning Board reviewed the proposed CUP at their January 11th meeting and recommended approval. A draft CUP and site plan is attached for the board's review, and any other conditions may be added to the draft CUP as a result of today's review. As required, the CUP process, adjoining property owners have been notified for the CUP, and we haven't received any comments at this time. And the project engineer, Michael Strader, is here to answer any questions as well.
Okay. Thank you, Noah.
Yes, sir.
Any questions of the board?
The project, you're the engineer, come on up, please. Mr. Chairman, for the record, everyone who speaks with this has been sworn already, so this is all under oath. And anything that you'd like to add?
Good morning, Chairman, members of the board. My name is Michael Strader. I'm an engineer with Quibo & Associates, a civil engineer of record for the conditional use permit application submitted before you this morning. As you've heard from planning staff, this application, it's a good proposed use of a cluster home development. It's in complete compliance with the ordinance. This is not a case where we've been asked to maximize the intensity of this use. We're simply proposing to make use of the existing infrastructure that's already in place. But with that, I'm glad to entertain any questions or concerns that you might have.
Board have any questions of Michael, County Manager?
Yes, sir. First, you're authorized to speak for the owner, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay, and you heard the evidence that was presented by the planning staff?
Yes, sir.
And you agree with the information that was provided and it can be offered into evidence?
Yes, sir.
Okay, and the file in this matter has also been submitted into evidence, and you consent to the entry of that information into evidence as well?
Correct.
And finally, you've seen the CUP and you agree to the terms and conditions of that CUP?
Yes, sir.
Okay, that's all I have.
Okay, thank you, County Manager. Is there, what's the pleasure of the board with
I move to that the proposed cluster home development state plan submitted by Christopher and Catherine Clark be approved as recommended by the planning board.
Okay, there's a motion on the floor by Commissioner House. Is there a second?
Second it.
Seconded by Commissioner Tobin. Floor is open for further discussion. Hearing none, those in favor of that motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Motion carries unanimous. Thank you, Michael.
Appreciate it.
Noah, thank you.
Mr. Chairman, that brings us to item 5 on the agenda, and that's the, I'm sorry, item 5, that's the additional revisions to the travel park and campground ordinance, and Donna will make that presentation.
Good morning, Donna.
Good morning. So am I holding the mic or? Good, excellent. I'm back in front of you again to speak to you about the travel trailer park ordinance. You'll recall back in, I think it was October, we amended the ordinance, and it was some substantial revisions that we made updating the travel trailer park ordinance. And at that time, we added a provision that allowed for camper cabins and alternative camper units to be included in a campground at a 50-50 ratio. So you could have 50% travel trailer sites and 50% dedicated to camper cabins and alternative camping units or eco tents or whatever the travel industry calls them now. And we adopted that, we put that in place, and at that time the board instructed me and the planning board to go back and have additional discussions about that ratio and whether it was the correct ratio. We had received public comment at the public hearing saying that perhaps 70% was the correct ratio or 100% camper cabins. And so the board instructed me to go back and discuss that with the planning board, and we did. We had 2 or 3 more months of discussion. And what the planning board has recommended is that we amend the ordinance again to allow 100% camper cabins or a higher ratio of camper cabins and alternative camping units at a decreased density. So before, when it was a 50-50 split, there was a density of 28 units per acre. And what the planning board has said is perhaps it is appropriate to let those free market forces decide what that ratio is. But if we're going to do that, then when the ratio goes up, the density needs to go down. And that density that they're proposing is 14 units, 14 being the number that was associated with the 50% ratio. There was also instructions from the board to see if the lot coverage was correct. The way that the language is written, it excludes the wetland areas from the lot coverage and some of the other uses. We include wetlands in the overall parcel side for lot coverages. And the planning board reiterated their support for the lot coverage language in the camper cabin or in the campground ordinance as it is now. We exclude the wetlands, but we allow pervious roads. And so that balances each other out, is what they felt that was appropriate and did not create any inconsistencies with the other uses. So there's no recommended change for the lot coverage. There is a recommended change in the language as far as it allows the ratio of the camper cabins and the alternative camping units. If the board wants to move forward with that change, we do have to have a public hearing, and that first possible date is at your next meeting, which is the
16th?
Tuesday. Yes, the Tuesday, not that Monday.
Right.
And I'll stop right there and entertain any questions that the board may have.
Okay, thank you, Donna. Does the board have any questions of Donna? Commissioner Ross?
Good morning, Donna.
Good morning.
As I was reading through it, this is merely a clarification question. You provided a very helpful chart where you showed examples of the ratio and density calculations. It's on page 21 of our pack. In the initial, very first line of the 50-50 split, we show a theoretical 280 camping sites on a 10-acre site.
Yes, sir.
That seems clear.
Yes, sir.
Here's where I was puzzling. If there are 140 cabins or alternative units on this 10-acre site, there are also 140 travel trailer park sites. Yes?
Yes.
So-
50-50.
Right. So the space utilized by the travel trailers would be some amount, some X number of acres to accommodate the 140 travel trailers. That would leave a remainder of Y acres, Y, for the 140 cabins, which would then increase 14 per acre. It would be a much higher number. That's where I stumbled on a little bit of the example. Because as I went down, in theory, at 100%, I have the same 140 units on the 10 acres, which are completely open at the very extreme example for all cabins, no
Yes, sir.
trailers. So all of that acreage for 140 trailers is now, quote, available and open for the same number of cabins at 50-50. So I was a little unclear. It seemed that in the 50-50 example as presented, there would be quite a density of cabins on the remaining acreage not devoted to travel trailers. So I was just trying to think through how that would work.
So the 14 units per acre is being applied under the 50-50. It's 14 units for the camper cabins and for the travel trailers. And then if you choose to have a higher density of those other units beside travel trailers, that 14 unit per acre is solely applied to the camper cabin sites. It's not applied as a blanket 14 units per acre. It's 14 units per acre for the camper cabins, which in some instances is going to equate to an overall 20 unit per acre, and it's going to decrease. That was why we included the example in there. So and in the example, you have to understand that it's 10 acres being used as the example, but for practical purposes, a 10-acre tract, you're going to take the area for the wastewater out. You're going to take the area for the sites out and the bathhouse and the other amenities that you have. So you're not going to have 10 acres that's entirely dedicated to the layout of the lots and the sites. And so,
So at the very beginning, when we're at 50/50, we're putting 280 sites of some sort, which would roughly per acre, or sorry, 280, it's 28 per acre density.
yes, sir.
Yes. Which, if you do the math real quick, is roughly 1,400 square feet per site
There,
on
it's
average.
it's a 1,500 square feet required for for campground sites. You can have a fixed layout of 1,500 square feet, and when you take 1,500 and divide it into an acre, which is 43,560 square feet, it comes out to be about 28, somewhere in there.
Gotcha.
So that was
That's-
what we used back in October.
Right.
And
That-
we use that for the starting point of our discussions again.
That makes sense. Okay, so as the travel trailer sites decrease in the example, the cabins increase.
Yes, sir.
And the density decreases, because in theory now we are adding greater square footage per unit as we add cabins and remove trailers.
Yes, sir. One goes up, the other goes down.
So I'm picturing, again, I'm looking at the 50% and the 100%. If I looked at an aerial view of the site, at the 50% level, I've got 140 trailers and 140 cabins on this piece of property as I look down from my helicopter. And in the 100% site, the trailers have all gone, and the cabins are the same 140 that I see. So have I simply kept the same number of cabins and freed up X number of acres that used to have trailers on them? So we've got a lot more green, wide open space?
I think that you're going to have more open space because the overall density is decreasing, be it cabins or alternative camping units or camper cabins. The steady is going to be the alternative camping units. And so if you choose to have more, there's still going to be a less intensive overall usage of the property regardless of the density that you're applying.
Here's the point I'm driving at. I'm looking for my fellow members here, if they're following me, or maybe I'm on a wrong track. I would have thought, as the travel trailers go from 140 to 0 in the example, I would have seen the cabin alternative units from 140 rise, but not all the way to 280. Maybe they would have risen to 170 or 180. You see what I'm saying? It feels like I've got 140 at the start, and I will then remove 140 trailers, leaving the identical 140 cabins, and all of that ground is now empty. Are you guys with me on this?
Oh, yeah.
So that's where I was getting puzzled. I thought there would be some commensurate increase in the cabins so that the 10 acres was fully utilized, but not at 280, maybe it was at 190 or 180.
That's the trade-off. If you choose to do all cabins and then you don't get the advantage of having 28 units per acre, you're held to that 14 unit per acre. So if you, granted, you can't have a 1 acre campground, you're always going to have 14 camper cabins per acre regardless of what size of track is, and that's going to increase the larger the track, the more camper cabins, but it's always going to be held to 14 units.
Yes, that's
So
what confused
they will be
me.
spatially spread out more over that 10-acre tract if they're just 14 units per acre and it's just solely 100% camper cabins. That was the issue that we were dealing with before, is that we felt like there was maybe an advantage that they were being granted because they were just camper cabins and not a group housing development, and that's why there is that drop in the density to try to address that concern.
Donna, if you look at this, why would anybody choose anything other than the 50%? Because you're going to get 140 cabins under every category, and I can get 140 travel trailers too under 50%, but that reduces as you go through. So why not just develop everything to 50%, and that's going to...
I think that with 100% camper cabins, there's an increase in the maintenance that the developer has to have. There's a increased overhead with the reservations of those campers. There's insurance. There's all of the other things that go with. It's just like running a hotel or a house. There's that upkeep, whereas with the vacant property of the travel trailers sites, you're just renting the site, and that's all that you're doing. You're providing the site for them and not the overhead of owning the camper cabin yourself. It's versus you have the overhead with the camper cabin sites. With the travel trailer sites, it's just the vacant land that you're renting out overnight.
Yeah, I'm sort of with Bobby. Why wouldn't you always do 50-50? It doesn't seem logical that I would choose to have 100% cabins with all of that vacant spot or territory or land that I could have been leasing to travel trailers that would have been income to me as owner of that campground. I think Bobby was onto something there.
It's a reflection of the market.
And who knows what that is? I mean, we thought we had it right the first time, and then we're hearing from the public that we're not. And so the planning board's goal in all this was try to address the concerns from the Board of Commissioners, as well as try to address the public comments that we were receiving, in that we had it wrong and that we needed to allow the alternative for 100% camper cabins. And that's what we've done with the associated drop in density, be it that right or wrong. I don't know.
But on the other hand, it's kind of a no harm, no foul. I can choose my 50% as my plan, and I may not use it all for the reasons that Donna said earlier, but I could still come back one day later and do that if I chose to. So if we're comfortable with the maximum use of the property at 140 travel trailers and 140 cabins, then that's our worst case and we're comfortable with it. The rest of it kind of doesn't matter. It's up to the developer.
Oh, I don't know if I agree.
Okay.
I'm back to my original thought. I put myself in the position of owning the 10 acres, and as you just said, Bobby, maximum use, according to what we are going to discuss and potentially authorize, would be 280 sites, 50% of which could be cabins. I'll use that, just shorten it for alternative units or cabins. Why would a rational person say, yes, I choose to remain fixed at 140 and not use any of the property for travel trailer sites? That doesn't seem to be an economically rational decision.
I think it's the upfront cost. He's going to have the burden of developing a raw site, putting in roads, putting in a bathhouse, and putting in travel trailer sites that he can immediately start having folks go in there and start using, whereas with the camper cabin sites, you got to put the roads in, the amenities, and then you got to construct those camper cabins. So it's a quicker turnaround. It's a bigger upfront investment. Whereas with the campground sites, it's for all intents and purposes raw land that if you choose to roll that over into some other development one day, you don't have the infrastructure there, and I'm including the camper cabins as part of the infrastructure to remove. And so I think it all depends on if that free market forces someone that has a vacant piece of property that just wants to have an interim use of the land as a campground for 5 or 10 years and get some money and then sell it and make a lot of money off of it, or if they're invested in going in and providing this campground with camper cabins and being there for a long time, such as KOA down on Hatteras Island or Camp Hatteras, where they've been in business for decades. It's the individual developer's goal in all of this, and we're trying to capture that and allow that, be it at 50% or 100%, and instead of trying to say, okay, 50, maybe 70, maybe 80, what's the right number? The planning board just said, let's just go ahead and allow it at 100%, but we're going to decrease the density so that it doesn't create inconsistencies with our group housing standards.
Donna, go ahead, Rob.
No, I heard exactly what you said. I'm still puzzled because if I develop the site, assuming I could get both trailers and cabins to be rented, and after a period of years, nobody's, just bear with me on this example, nobody's coming with trailers anymore. Trailers are too expensive, they're, we can't find materials, but everybody wants cabins. I would be sitting there with 140 cabins rented, multiple acres sitting vacant, and people saying, I'd like to rent a cabin. Well, we can't, we're at maximum density. But what about all those empty acres? We're at maximum density. You see where I'm going with this? My thinking on it was, if you, and again, maybe I'm wrong here, if you progressed from 50% cabins to 70%, you might see a density of 16 or so cabins. And if you rose to 90%, it might be an 18 per acre. And at 100%, 20 per acre, not the 28, but some progressive, because I continue to keep seeing this empty space, half full of cabins and half.
That's the whole idea of having development regulations, is that you don't develop every square inch of the piece of property. And so when we were here in October, we were concerned that if we allowed 100% at the 28 acres, that we were going to have an overdeveloped campground that wasn't a campground because it had 100% camper cabins. That's what I was hearing.
Right, that would
from
have
the
been
board.
28 cabins per acre.
Right, and so if the board thinks that 28 units per acre is acceptable, then we can just change that density, that percentage that's in the campground, and not have this alternative language that the planning board has recommended. They were just, in their wisdom and their discussions, based on all of the work that we had done for months discussing it, felt that if the board and the county was going to allow campgrounds to be developed with these cabins and alternative units, that greater density per unit needed to be decreased to allow that higher percentage. That may be wrong. I don't know. That's what we're trying to accomplish.
I wasn't questioning that so much as.
So I don't think, and you correct me if I'm wrong, Don, I don't think
I'm struggling myself.
that
so
you
yeah.
equate, if you're going to have cabins and travel trailer sites, I don't think are considered one-to-one in terms of what you would want in density on the property. We may allow more travel trailers than we would cabins.
Correct.
And so what the choice has been is they've limited the density of the cabins to 14 per acre. And so they hold that density no matter what you do with that property, they hold that. And if you use that 50%, it's okay to have another 140 travel trailer sites on there. But you're never going to get more than 14 per acre, because that's the percentage that's been chosen by the planning board as the right density for travel trailers. If that's not the right density, if you think differently than they do, that the density for travel trailers should be greater, or that the density of a travel trailer and a cabin are one-to-one, then so be it. And that would mean you would need to change this, and you would just treat them both the same. And then if you're going to allow 280 sites per 10 acres, then so be it. 28 to the acre of whatever they want to put, then you go back, as Donna said earlier, and change the original order. You don't need all this. If you're going to hold the cabins to 14 an acre, a greater density than a travel trailer, then you got to have some kind of mechanism to distinguish the two, much as what she's done here.
There's no magic to it. It was just,
Yeah,
what we felt was appropriate.
I keep looking in my head at these two sites. Site one is 50-50, and from the helicopter, I'm looking down, and I see 140 trailers and 140 cabins. Then I fly half mile down the road. There's another 10-acre site, and it's got 140 cabins and nothing else. All of the trailer site, there are no trailer sites, and they're the same thing. That's what I was.
I have one other.
I don't follow. I don't follow where you're going with that.
In my mind, an acre of land can
support X amount. And I think what Rob's saying is 1 acre in one scenario is supporting half of the cabins, and then the other one is supporting the cabins and the trailers. So if it's okay for 1 acre to support all those trailers and all those cabins, why is it not okay for that 1 acre to support more cabins and no trailers?
Yeah, do a progressive type.
Because back in October, we had made the distinction that a campground needed to have both.
Yeah, that was
The
the
easy way
whole.
out is do nothing. And I don't mean that to avoid the issue, but we're doing this because we're trying to massage what the board was trying to get us to from the last meeting. But we haven't had a developer come in and say, hey, I'd like to do this, and maybe we wait till a developer comes in with the site and says, I'd like to do more than what your current ordinance has, and then we can kind of see what the market is and how it bears and get something that works rather than trying to create something that may or may not reflect what the market is, because we don't know what the market is.
Well,
And we'll probably have that at the public hearing.
Once
yeah.
again, we go back. We were trying not to change the definition of campground.
That's
Campground.
Yeah.
I mean, that was the whole purpose of that.
Right.
Donna, just a question here about the example, and it's showing a 10-acre site, and it's 14 per acre of cabins and whatever it is for travel trailers. I guess
Right.
it's higher than that. But in this chart, it's showing for the 10-acre site 140 cabins. That uses up all 10 acres, right? So
Yes, sir. For
if
the
it's
sake of the example, right.
Yeah, and so so how can it have, in terms of the chart, how can it have 140 travel trailers and 140 cabins?
At the 50-50 ratio, you're allowed the greater overall density of 28 units per acre.
Of,
You've got 50% and then you've got 50%. So it's overall 28. If you choose to go in at the 50% ratio, you get the benefit of 28 units per acre, which equates to 14 units. You have to have half and half, so it's 14 units.
The examples that you have in there are examples for us to look at, but the ordinance basically says
5 acres.
that you can have a minimum of 50%, and then you can do whatever you want, and you're held to 14 per acre. We could take that chart out. We wouldn't need that chart.
so that's saying 5 acres at 28.
That's right.
Yes, sir.
Per acre.
I just
That's right.
chose 10
Okay.
acres
Yeah,
because it was a
that's right.
round
That's
number,
right.
yeah.
And then the other 5 acres
That's right.
is going to have 140 travel trailers, sites,
Yes, sir. In concept, it would, yes.
staying with the 28.
Yes.
Okay,
Yeah.
gotcha.
So there's a benefit of the benefit of having the 50-50 ratio if you're the developer is that you have an increased density overall. And if you choose to do something other than the 50%, then you're choosing to accept the lower density.
So Donna, is it true that if I didn't want to have any cabins, I could have 280 travel trailers on that 10-acre
Yes.
site?
Yep.
Yes,
All right.
that's exactly true.
So if we said that you can have, that you can only have X number of, you can have 28 travel trailers per acre, not more than 28 travel trailers per acre, and not more than 14 cabins
Alternative.
per acre. And the developer can choose, he can have 13 of one, and whatever he makes up, he can put in travel, and that would solve the issue that we're talking about.
Yeah, is there not a minimum square footage, let's say, that, from a practical standpoint, that these cabins sit on? I would assume it's larger than,
Yes, there is. In the fixed layout, you have a 1,500 square foot site that you can choose to have an RV parked on it, or you can put a cabin on it. Or you can go with this free-flowing site to where you have 15 feet of separation, which equates to the 28 acres per unit. That's where that came from, and that's where all that math went into in the ordinance as it is now. And we acknowledged at that time, back in October, that we might not have that number right. Let's wait and see what happens. Now, I will tell you that at the planning board meetings, that same individual that was making public comments during the whole development of this is saying that 50-50 ratio for cabins doesn't work for him, but this does. And so that scenario that Mr. Alton is saying, let's wait and see from the public and see if we have a developer come in and have a site plan based on the amounts that we have in there and whether that works. And if we need to amend it, that's what I'm hearing from this developer, is that he can't make it what he wants to do in his vision at the 50-50 rate. And so that playing into the planning board's discussions is part of where we came up with the 14 and all.
Well, I'm hearing from the board, I think, and I think this goes to Commissioner Ross's issue, that you all are comfortable with 14 cabins per acre because for whatever reason the planning board and planning staff believes that's appropriate, and you're comfortable with 28 travel trailers per acre. And so if I keep that in mind and I'm the developer, I can put 280 travel trailers, and then for every 2 travel trailers I reduce, I can add a cabin site. Because they're twice, you got to have half the density of the cabins to the trailers. And so it's a 2-to-1 ratio, basically, right? 28 and 14 is 2-to-1. So for every 2.
No, it's a 1-to-1 ratio. Yeah.
No. If I can get a travel trailer, 2 travel trailers on, I got to have 28. What if I got to have 28 acres? I got to have 14 per acre of cabins. 14, and I can have 28 per acre.
No, you can have 28 per acre, and 14 of those are RVs and 14 are travel trailers. It's a 1-to-1 ratio, yeah.
Okay.
What if it's just travel trailers?
I'm sorry?
What if it's just travel trailers?
Then it's 28 units per acre.
28 per acre.
Mr. Chairman?
Yeah, 28, it's 28 and 14, yeah.
I can speaking for myself, I can live with this as presented.
Yeah.
I think the growth measures are there. If there's going to be a focus on alternative camping units, then we're dealing with it in a growth manner. It's consistent with what we've done in the past, whether it's going all the way back to the SED down in Hatteras. It was put in there as a measure that it controls growth. And is it perfect? No, but it's pretty darn close. And I think we should move forward and let's go to the hearing.
First of all, let me recognize Commissioner Bateman.
Danny, I agree with you, 100%. I think that I think we've revisited this enough. I think the planning board has done their due diligence. They've done an outstanding job. But we'll tell you this, and I want y'all to listen to me. I had the opportunity to be down and do the little camping thing. There was 488 sites at this place I was at. I took my morning run, and I happened to notice and started counting. There was 96 small houses. Out of the small houses, 4 were rented. 4, Donna, you see this? 4
Yes, sir.
were rented. Out of the 488, the rest of them were travel trailers, these massive, gigantic drive-on things that were worth $500,000. They're all rented, every one of them. Economically speaking, Mr. Ross, Commissioner, it's $150 a day for renting that site. Wouldn't you rather rent a site for $150 a day than having those houses empty? They were empty. And the rest of the travel trailers were full. So I think what this ordinance does, it does a really good job of giving a developer the flexibility of saying, the travel trailers is working for me now, let's put 288 there. Or for some reason in 10 years, everybody wants to stay in little small cabins. Much easier to build a small cabin where a travel trailer was than it is to tear a small cabin down and then put a travel trailer there. So I think this has done a great job of addressing it. But economically speaking, I'd much rather be in the travel trailer business.
Sure.
Than be in the cabin business. And also it takes, I asked this guy, it takes $80,000 to build one of those little cabins. 80 grand. And for the 30 by 60 foot site that I was on, I wouldn't take some more than $10,000, I would think.
A lot of maintenance on those cabins. They're going to be
Oh, I know.
rubbing shrimp shells into the carpet and everything. They're going to be working on them all,
And on
cleaning
top of
fish
that-
in the sink.
This place was in a flood zone and had been flooded 3 times.
Yeah, I think somebody going into this better do their homework. I'm familiar with, over in Virginia, there's a place in Virginia that has almost 2,000 sites. And they have these cabins. They've got a ratio over there as well. They don't rent. They don't rent. The travel trailers are dime a dozen. They're flying off the shelf. That's the biggest industry in our country right now. They're buying them left and right.
Yeah.
And people are wanting travel trailers as opposed to renting a cabin on a site. And I have to agree with Commissioner Bateman. When you're renting them like that, I'd certainly rather rent a travel trailer spot than a cabin because, anyhow, it's certainly up to the developer, but they better really do their homework if they want to put a bunch of cabins on a campsite. Anyhow, anybody else have anything else to say? Otherwise, we need a motion to set a public hearing for February the 16th.
So moved.
There's a motion by Commissioner Couch, seconded by
Second.
Commissioner House. Any further discussion? Hearing none, those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, like sign. Motion carries unanimous. Thank you so
Thank you
much,
so
Donna.
much. Yes, sir.
Thanks, Donna.
Mr. Chairman, that brings us to item 6 on the agenda. In your packet, you have a resolution supporting home health and hospice request for proposal. We've talked at several meetings about home health and hospice and about trying to find ways to solve some of the problems that we're having over there. You had authorized several meetings ago for us to get an attorney involved to help us look at whether it makes any sense to sell it or not. No decisions have been made. But in order to solicit information from potential buyers out there, there's a statutory process you have to go through. We're actually selling the certificate of need if we ever chose to do that we have. And the statute has provisions that you have to do. One is before they can talk to you and you can solicit the information we need to make decisions, you have to do this resolution of your notice of intent to sell. Now, it sounds like we've made a decision. It sounds like from this resolution that we've already decided what we're going to do. And as you know, we know, and I've talked with the staff and they know, that is not what we're doing. We are soliciting proposals. We may yet sell it, but we may not yet sell it, depending on what comes out of the proposals we get and what other alternatives that we have out there once we have all the information in hand. But we can't go any further with the solicitation of proposals to understand what the market will bear out there without doing this resolution. And so it's before you for your approval to take that next step. But I'll say it for about the 4th time, we have not made any decisions in spite of what this may look like or how it reads. It's done by the statutory form. We are open to something other than selling it if at the end of the day that's what we choose to do. Again, this is just a step in the process so that we can gather the information that we need.
You're going to read the resolution?
I will if you'd like.
Please.
Okay. It says, whereas Dare County currently owns certain assets, which assets are associated with and utilized in the operation of a Medicare-certified home health and hospice agency, Dare Home Health and Hospice, hereinafter the agency. Whereas the board has performed a review of the current home health and hospice operational environment in its region, as well as the agency's fiscal operational position, and has examined and considered the prospects for continuing to operate these services as an independent provider in such environment. Whereas the board has examined the potential benefits of conveying the agency to another operator and believes it is in the best interest of the county and the community to further investigate the opportunities for a sale of this agency at this time. Whereas NC General Statute Section 131E13D sets forth the procedural requirements by which the county must sell or otherwise convey the agency to a third party, such procedural requirements were promulgated to ensure that all interested parties, including, without limitation, the members of the general public, have the opportunity to comment about potential sale or conveyance, and pursuant to North Carolina General Statute Section 131E13D1, the board desires to declare its intent to sell the agency. Now therefore be it resolved that the board hereby declares its intent to sell the agency contingent upon the county's receipt of an acceptable proposal for such sale, which complies with the requirements of North Carolina law and is satisfactory to the board. Be it further authorized that the board hereby authorize healthcare advisors to prepare and issue a request for proposal for the sale of the agency, which shall include a copy of NC General Statute Section 131E13D, and if needed, to negotiate and effectuate the sale of the agency. Adopted this the first day of February 2021.
Pleasure of the board.
Mr. Chairman, I'll move to adopt the resolution, but I do want to make it absolutely clear as a member of this board, we have not, at this present time, decided to sell it or not, but this is an action we have to take as a hurdle to get over so that we can actually look at all options available to us.
It's a motion on the floor by Commissioner House. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Second by Commissioner Tobin. Any further discussion? Hearing none, those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Motion carries unanimous.
Chairman, that brings us to the consent agenda. On the consent agenda, you have the approval of the minutes from January 19th. You have a reimbursement resolution for fiscal year 2020-2021 vehicle and equipment financing number 2. You have a Dominion Power easement for the College of the Albemarle project, and you have the Department of Health and Human Services, Public Health, and COVID-19 funding.
Move to approve the consent agenda.
There's a motion on the floor by Commissioner House to approve the consent agenda as presented. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Ross. Any further discussion? Hearing none, those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Motion carries unanimous.
Next, Mr. Chairman, are your board appointments. You have one today. It's the Dare County Transportation Advisory Board. The advisory board currently has 2 vacancies and has reviewed applications at their December 2020 meeting. They recommend the appointment of Amanda Hooper and Lorenzo Foster to those positions.
Move to approve.
A motion on the floor by Commissioner Couch.
A second.
And it's been seconded by Commissioner Bateman. Any further discussion? Hearing none, those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Motion carries unanimous.
And then your upcoming board appointments in March, you don't have any. In April, you have the Mans Harbor Marina Commission. You have 4 terms expiring. In May, you have the Extraterritorial Jurisdiction, ETJ, Town of Nags Head, with 1 term expiring. You have the Veterans Advisory Council with 2 terms expiring. And you have the Zoning Board of Adjustments with 1 term expiring. And that would be your agenda, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. Thank you, County Manager. That brings us to item 9 on the agenda, and that's Commissioner's business. And Commissioner Bateman, do you mind kicking that off today?
Sure do. Congratulations to Shanna on 25 years. I would tell you, she came in the restaurant right after she got the job at Dare County. And I was working at the time for RV. And I said, congratulations. It's hard to believe it's been 25 years that girl's been with us. So it's just amazing. She does a great job. Other than that, that's all I got. And thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Bateman. I appreciate it. Commissioner Couch?
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Irvin, I agree. That's that position is a lightning rod because you hear from everybody, and I wouldn't want it. So thank you, Shanna, if you're around, for all your hard work. I know the phone calls you get. The Rodanthe Bridge, it's going to be getting close to being done. Hopefully, they'll be on schedule for the end of this year. And there's been an uptick in activity around there. Going up the beach this morning, I mean, there were cars everywhere. There were a lot of rocks. There's a lot of stuff they're moving around, putting in stuff to, I guess they would use those to shore up the southern terminus of it. But let's just keep our eye on it. It really is, it's a neat project. Had the opportunity to be around a lot of those guys. They're all lunch pail, blue collar guys. The community has, they've employed a lot of local people there. It's just pretty darn cool. Hopefully they'll be done by the end of the fall. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Couch. Commissioner Tobin?
I don't have much, but I'd just like to say thank you to Sheila Davies and her staff for operating just an amazing vaccine program. It's just so smooth and so efficient. It's really a pleasure to be associated with it. That's all I got.
Thank you, Commissioner Tobin. Commissioner Ross?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just have a couple items. One, I would ask everyone to please be aware that a few days ago, there was a very, very tragic auto accident, and a young lady named Tatum Love, a junior at First Flight High School, was seriously injured in the accident. And there are quite a few in the community that have risen to support her and her family in this time. And I just want to bring everyone's attention to that and ask for support, prayers, and all good wishes for them at this very, very difficult moment. Secondly, the Albemarle Commission, which I sit on, had its election of new officers. And just to share with the board, Mr. Lloyd Griffin of Pasquotank County is the new chair of that board. Mr. Jordan Davis of Terrell County is the vice chair, and Ms. Fondella Lee from Perquimans County is our new secretary. And lastly, I will just echo Commissioner Tobin's comments. My wife and I received the vaccine last week on the 27th, and to Dr. Davies and the entire team and staff there, I saw our Director Drew Pearson there at the Parks and Rec building facility in Kill Devil Hills. It could not have been more professionally and smoothly run, and the operation was just terrific. So thank you, and my appreciation. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Commissioner Ross. Commissioner House?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Again, I'd like to also, as my fellow commissioners have said, Sheila Davies and the Health and Human Services staff has definitely gone above and beyond with the vaccinations. We have heard from several of our constituents that of how smoothly that operation is being run. So my kudos to our staff there. Commissioner Ross brought up Tatum Love, and her family put up a GoFundMe page, which has gotten over, I think, $80,000 in donations. Also, Slice Pizza today is actually doing a fundraiser for her if you go in and order.
Yes,
Slice
very
pizza.
good. That's what I forgot.
16-inch pizza, $10 of that pizza will be donated to that fund. So definitely go and for lunch or dinner today, if you want to get a pizza, that'd be the place to go. They are also accepting monetary donations as well. In case you don't want to have a pizza, but you just want to give to the fund, they'll be more than happy to take that donation as well. We have heard from her family is that she is maintaining her she does have her eyes open and she can acknowledge who's there, but she did suffer a very severe head injury. So anything that the Outer Banks community can do to show our love and dedication for our fellow citizens, this is the time to do it, just like we always do. So this past January on the 13th, in the House of Legislation for North Carolina, Speaker of the House Tim Moore announced the committees and chairman for those committees. After several discussions over the years, Representative Speaker Moore decided to add a new committee. That committee is Marine Resources and Agricultural Committee, which means that all fishery bills will go through that committee before hitting the floor. And the chairman has been named for that committee, and that is our own Representative Bobby Hainig is our chairman. And Bobby has, over the past couple of years, has really educated himself, immersed himself into the commercial fishing and also into the recreational side of it as well to get a good rounded education of it. And in the past few months, I know he's had several discussions with a lot of our people that are in our fisheries, and I feel very confident that he's on board with what's going on, and I feel great to be able to work with him a little bit more on it as well. So I think that was a good move by the speaker, and we'll move forward with that. Also, on November 10th, I believe you'll remember that I put out that the CCA had filed a lawsuit against the state of North Carolina and a few of our fishing trawlers in North Carolina about the use of shrimp trawling and gill nets, and that it was the State House was in violation of North Carolina Constitution and public trust doctrine of our marine fisheries. The North Carolina Fishing Association has joined up with the state to file a motion in court to dismiss and also to lay hands with the state to help them combat the lawsuit with actual factual basis of the facts that are in the case as opposed to just the ideology of what's going on. So we'll look forward to seeing what that was just announced this past week, and good to see that that's going to happen. And for our day in history, we have something very relevant here in Dare County that happened yesterday. So I'll use my day in history as yesterday. Yesterday was the 100th anniversary of the shipwreck of the Carol A. Deering, more famously known as the Ghost Ship. When they rounded Cape Hatteras, the light ship Diamond Shoals noticed the ship was having troubles. They signaled they lost their anchor, but kept on. A few miles later, they ran ashore. When the life-saving station got to the ship, after several days, it took them a few days because of the rough weather, they got to the ship. No crew members were on board. All the life rafts on the ship were gone. No survivors. That was 100 years ago yesterday. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Commissioner House. That brings us to county manager's business. County manager? Oh, I'm sorry. I forgot.
Good morning, Wally.
I forgot the vice chairman. I apologize.
Let's sleep there for a second.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Total disrespect.
Total disrespect for the law. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd also like to extend thanks to Shanna Fulmer for her 25 years of service to Dare County. In my dealings with Shanna, she's always been professional and always been helpful in whatever she was asked to do, and I really, really appreciate that. I also send our best wishes to the family of Tatum Love, and we're all hoping and praying for a good outcome there. I would ask one question of Bobby, and that is, with regard to the CCA lawsuit, could we as a board or a county do an amicus brief in that lawsuit to join the state in that, or is that something that would be worthwhile or necessary, or what's your feelings on that?
I don't know if it'd be worthwhile or necessary. There's a procedure to file an amicus at certain levels. Typically, that's not at the trial level, and they're just at the trial level. Now, they're not at the appellate level.
Gotcha.
We're not parties to that suit, so for us to be involved, we would have to file suit or join as a party to the suit, to be we'd be joining as a defendant, I suppose, or a third-party defendant.
Right.
There is a procedure to do that, but I think if we were going to do something like that, then the parties involved would need to say that that would be a benefit. To my knowledge, we've only done that one time. We did that in that suit that was involved with the beaches down south when they were trying to privatize the beaches, and we joined that at the appellate stage. So they had their trial when it went through the appellate. We and multiple other counties joined with amicus briefs to go forward, but you can't do an amicus brief at the trial level.
Okay, 10-4. Thank you, that's all I have.
Mr. Chairman, I failed to mention Tatum Love, Lori is her mom, and she's part of the Dare County family. She's the marketing director for Outer Banks Tourist Bureau.
Yeah.
Super nice lady, just works hard, and the family's just great people. And I'm sorry, I'm glad you guys brought it up. Very, very important. And sorry to hear about her. And the last thing I will just say, I went to got my shot, and those guys are professional over there. Did a great job.
Regarding Tatum, Mr. Chairman, and everybody, that's OBX wide. I mean, I've got buddies in Ocracoke who, they know that family well, so top to bottom.
Absolutely, no question. It's, we just keep our fingers crossed and hope and pray that she'll get a full recovery. County Manager?
Yes, sir. Just two things. You all have talked about the vaccine, and you're right, it's going smooth. Our issues with vaccines are getting enough vaccines, and that's still problematic. We can't get enough to do what we need to do. I'll assure you all, and anybody that's listening as well, that Sheila and our staff have done everything possible, written letters to say how incredulous we are that we can't get the vaccine. We've talked to them about, we're capable of doing, a couple of thousand a day if we could get vaccine. We can't understand the vaccine distribution plan. Nonetheless, our vaccines we're down in the 300 or 400 a week level when we need several thousand a week at least. I know that as of today, we've put in to try to get a large shipment of vaccine to do what they're calling mega sites, where we could do 3,000 in one go or 1-2 day period. Don't know whether we'll get them or not, but I want everyone to know we're doing everything possible in our powers to get more vaccine and to get some here, because we're still don't have all our 65-year-olds vaccinated yet. We can't get to the next level of our public government employees who are essential to the continuity of service is the next level. We can't get there because we can't get the priority ahead of them done. And so getting more vaccine is critical to us.
Yeah, I read the article about this in the Outer Banks Voice, and there was a quote from the state health director. I was unable to understand what it meant in trying to explain the logic of diverting hundreds and hundreds of doses scheduled for Dare County to some mega event in Charlotte. I didn't understand it. The explanation didn't make any sense.
Well, I'll tell you that I don't think anyone has. It was confusing enough, and enough people complained that they had a conference call a week or so ago that had all of the county managers as well as all the health directors on it, which was a big call and doesn't happen very often. And similarly, they had a call that followed that with just the health directors. And while there was lots of kudos and thanks and praise for all the local health departments, there was no explanation really given. And then we were told what they plan to do going forward, and what they're doing going forward may assure us of some number of vaccines, but the number that it assures us of isn't sufficient to do what we need to be done timely. I mean, we're going to be way into the spring and maybe early summer before we come close to getting there. So
again, just, I don't know there's much more we can do, but I just wanted everybody to know that that's what's going on and that we're trying really hard to get more vaccine, and the frustration that the people in the community and you all feel with not being able to move the vaccine is felt by us as well. And, you know, we're doing what we can. With that said, I need a motion to go into a closed session pursuant to NCGS 143 through 1811A5 to instruct the county staff or negotiating agents concerning the position to be taken by or behalf of the county in negotiating the pricing of material terms of a contract or proposed contracts for the acquisition of real property by purchase, option, exchange, or lease in the matter of, I think it's owned by Conch Shell property. And also to go into closed session pursuant to NCGS 31811A to preserve the attorney-client privilege.
So moved.
There's a motion on the floor by Commissioner House, seconded by Commissioner Bateman to go into closed session. We'll do that in just a second after there's a motion on the floor. Those in favor of that motion to go into closed session, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Motion carries unanimous. So we'll do that in just a moment. I want to call on our public information officer and our finance director. But let me go back to you with respects to COVID and try to answer Commissioner Ross. I believe I've seen from the state, correct me if I'm wrong, Bobby, we will be getting the dosages for the next 3 weeks, the same amount of dosage in the next 3 weeks. I'm hoping it's going to be in that 1,300 category. I don't know. If they do that 3%, it's around 1,000. So I don't know. Do you have anything any different to that?
I'll check to confirm and let you all know. My understanding is we're talking about 300 or 400 doses, not 1,300 doses a week.
Okay. I thought they were looking at that 3%.
We'd like that, but,
Yeah.
but I don't think we're going to get there.
Do you, are you aware of the vaccine dates this week?
I don't know them off the top of my head.
Okay.
Do you, Dorothy?
Do you, Dorothy? Okay. Well, stay tuned, folks. We'll try to get that publicized out here if we can get that from Dr. Davies.
How does it work on the second doses? Is that included in what there is, or when you're supposed to get a second dose, are those already?
They're booked, from what I've been told.
They're already booked.
They're already booked.
They're not what we're talking about.
That's what I thought,
allocation.
but
We're talking about new.
just for clarification.
Talking about new first shot.
Yeah, okay.
At least that's what we've been told.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Dorothy Hester, public information, you have anything for us? Mr. Clausen, you have anything additional for us?
Just real quickly, get it in your heads, and it's COVID too. I talked to my counterpart at Carteret County, who took much the same approach with FEMA that we did. They got paid about $10,000 back in July, and nothing since. We haven't been paid anything. And Friday, we had a $75,000 first PW that we filed, which was for the checkpoints. And I want to say, I think they're having a hard time getting their heads around checkpoint costs because nobody else did it. But they denied $63,000 out of that 75. And a lot of it was equipment use, which I wasn't counting on, but the rest of it is what they told us to do. It's disinfection, sanitation, sanitizing, plexiglass, thermometers. So I've already told them we're going to appeal it, so we'll keep working on it. But the point being is we've got it all sitting in a separate special revenue fund with the North Carolina Relief Fund money. So we may end up having to move some of FEMA over to Relief Fund, but we'll let you know. We'll keep working on it.
Thank you, David. All right, gentlemen, we will go into closed session. I'm going to call the board meeting back to order, and I'll turn it over to the county manager.
In the closed session, the board gave the county attorney guidance with regard to a real estate matter and took no other action.
All right, thank you, county manager. That brings us to the close of our meeting today, and I'd like to, is there someone to entertain a motion to adjourn until 5 p.m. on February the 16th?
So moved.
It's a motion on the floor by Commissioner House. It's been seconded by
Me.
Commissioner Ross and Bateman. Any further discussion? Hearing none, those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Motion carries unanimous.